First things first, gentlemen. How are you?
Very well.
Very good, how are you?
I'm alright, thank you. Before we delve into the album, I'd like to go back a couple of days. And we kind of talked about it before the camera went on, but you only played the first gig of the show the other night. What was the feeling going back into this getting out of the festival summer and getting into this touring, the new album schedule?
It was really nice to go back into playing like a club show. We've kind of just been doing festivals and much bigger shows all summer, and playing to people who predominantly weren't our crowd. We had a few kind of big shows in Ireland that were amazing, but most of it was kind of festivals, so you're kind of not really sure what to expect. But it was amazing to have our own crowd back in front of us. We've got a whole new show, whole new songs, new set list, so it was exciting.
There's a big difference between playing for a festival crowd and playing for our own crowd. I think it's 3 years since we've last toured like this. Okay. And so, yeah, last night was great. We were really nervous, but it worked out really well, so we're excited.
Do the shows become more intimate when it's your own crowd?
Yeah, definitely, because the crowd knows like album tracks and stuff like that, so it makes it a lot easier for us. But yeah, I mean, I prefer our own crowds because it's easier.
Fair enough.
To be blunt. But yeah, no, it's great. It's awesome.
Were you able to try out some of the new songs over the summer?
The odd one here and there, but not a lot. A lot of our festival show, like we play for about an hour and 40 minutes for our own show, and then for a festival it ranges from half an hour to an hour, rarely more than that.
Right.
So when you're fitting in songs from your first album and your second album, and it can be quite tough to fit them in, and it's quite scary playing a new song as well that nobody has ever heard, especially when it's a festival crowd, when a lot of the crowd may not necessarily know who we are. So not really. We've played like a couple of the songs that we released before, from our new album, before our new album was out, and they went down well, but not a lot.
How much of the live show was in your minds when you started writing, and then kind of the production element of it?
We never really think about live shows when we're in the studio. It's kind of all about the song, and we'll give the song whatever it needs. We've always thought like that as a band and as writers. And then once we get into a room and we're rehearsing, then we'll start to freak out and worry about how the feck we're going to play it live.
So is this still the period where you're trying to figure out set lists and kind of?
A little bit, yeah, but we have done rehearsals and stuff like that, so we're in good shape. And last night was a great show, so yeah.
We're kind of good start is.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it was good. We're kind of slowly introducing new songs.
Okay.
We're not gonna like play the whole album in its entirety. We love putting on a show and like making sure that the people come and have a great night so they can hear songs they want to hear. So yeah, we're kind of rehearsing in new songs on the tour as well. So as the tour goes on, we'll kind of change the set list up. But yeah, last night was awesome. Like we've always had great shows in Belgium. So that was good.
And then, what are your expectations for the Netherlands now tonight?
Well, Netherlands is the first place that we always said this. Netherlands is the first place that kind of took us under our wing. You know, as soon as we released All I Want, our first song, it went kind of big here, and our shows sold out here before they sold out in Dublin. So it's
first place in the world. Like we were rehearsing, and yeah, we just got a call, and we're like, all right, you're going to Holland and you're playing a show. And I think it was, what's the festival in the Paradiso?
London
Calling. It was that, and we played the small room, and there was just loads of people like trying to get in the doors. The whole room was rammed, so we were kind of like, wow, this is amazing. People actually came to see us, and yeah, it was awesome.
But that's an interesting thought, because being where you are now, how do you look back at that initial couple of months when things started to take off in a way?
It's more like not looking back at the initial months, it's looking back at the initial years, to be honest, because when we did our first album, we released it, And then we pretty much went straight into our second album and just toured, and kept writing and whatnot. And then we only kind of took stock, I think. Well, I did personally. Like 2 years ago, we kind of took a bit of a break before kind of working on our third album. And that's kind of like there's so many stories. It's just it's an amazing journey that we've been on. You know, we've traveled the world. We've been to places that we never thought we'd go to. We've been back to places that we never thought we'd go to. I mean, it's incredible. We're very lucky.
With those 5 years, is it, because like you say, you kind of constantly toured and made 2 albums, is it difficult to kind of reflect or be aware of what's going on at the time? Is it only afterwards that you can kind of...
Yeah, it's always retrospectively. Like even when we played a huge show in Dublin, we've done a few now. When the whole day is really exciting and the show is just over in a blur and it's an amazing rush of energy, but it's not until a few days later that you start to kind of delve in and think about it. But we try not to look back too much. But yeah, I agree with Steve. The first few years were kind of, you were so busy. When you did one thing that blew your mind, like playing a festival, the next day you were doing it again in a different country and you were meeting this person. And
it was almost like something every day that was like life-changing. You know, so yeah, I think you just get into a mode where you're just going with it, you know. I think we're a little older now, and I think more mature and kind of, it's a lot easier now to be in the moment, you know. Even with the release of this new album, like the reaction so far has been great. Our fans have really like loved the album, which is great because we did change up our sound quite a lot, and yeah. I think it's a lot more chilled out now. Like back then when it all just hit us, we were like deer in headlights, just fucking...
Didn't know what to do.
Traveling all over the world, partying and whatnot.
How important was taking a little break 2 years ago? How important was that to kind of mature a little? And
It kind of happened naturally. We never planned it, and as Mark said earlier, we continued doing festivals around the world and stuff. I think the main thing that actually brought on the kind of a break was 2 of the guys, our drummer and our bass player, both married their long-term childhood sweethearts. So weddings and stuff like that, and we all moved out of our parents' houses and did real life stuff. I think, yeah, it's just that breathing space gives you time to kind of look at everything and take stock of everything and just realise how lucky we actually are, I suppose, you know. And we have achieved a lot, you know. We're still very hungry and we want to achieve more, you know. We're very excited about this album. But,
well, yeah, I was going to ask, because you do seem like quite an ambitious band. So once you make that decision, okay, let's go for the third album and we're going to change things up a little bit, is there a worry, or does that come later?
I think there's a worry with every album or everything that you put out, you know, because you can't impress everybody, and like, I think us as a band, we've never really had a defining sound as well, so it's tough to know what direction to take, like whether we want to do this type of music or this type of music or this type of music or whatever. But it's scary, but you just kind of have to fucking just
dive in,
fucking put it out there, you know, and see what happens, you know. Who knows what we'll do on our next album, you know.
And I read that you met Kygo and you worked with him a little bit. How did that experience, or did that experience shape kind of what
I think, yeah, it definitely influenced us as a band in a way. He's an awesome dude, you know, and his style of music would have been something that we never would have really looked towards. But yeah, I think it indirectly influenced us in one way or another in the writing process and recording or whatever. But especially with the electronic elements and all that in production. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and it was awesome that we have a song. I mean, it's awesome that we have a song with him, you know.
Right.
It's great.
What was the first song that you guys started on? Or
This
that,
album?
Yeah, that ended up on the album.
Probably Head Held High.
Okay.
Yeah, that was an early song that we kind of discarded, and then brought it back because it's a great pop tune, and I think we were a little bit scared it was a bit too pop, but it's a great tune. In my head, I was comparing it to a song we had off our first album called Brand New Day, and there's always space for a happy, carefree song on an album.
Well,
You know?
what I like about that song in particular, and it kind of, when you say that was the first one you started working on, it's quite an upbeat, hopeful album. So did that set the tone in a way for we're not gonna make this a depressing thing? We're gonna talk about things that we like as well, the things that empower people.
I think unintentionally a lot of our songs have that kind of positive empowerment message. You know, it's like happy, sad songs. Like I think that's just a certain style of lyric that we have, but it's not really. The making of this album was just a lot of songs, lots of ideas thrown around, lots of different things, trying to really figure out what direction we wanted to go in terms of sound, less about songs.
Okay.
I think working with different producers as well was very eye-opening. Guys like Johnny Coffer, who has worked with like Rag and Bone Man and Beyonce and stuff, and he's incredibly talented, like, you know, whereas we'd pick up like a guitar and go to a piano instinctively to write a melody or start the bones of a song, he'll be sitting on a laptop and then all of a sudden he'll play something through the speakers that'll just be this big melodic hook, and it's like, what the feck is that? You know, yeah, it's been really cool. I mean, it's opened up the doors for us to collaborations and stuff, whereas before this we kind of kept everything to ourselves. It was just the four of us writing songs, and then we'd go in with the same producer and produce it up or whatever. But yeah.